You set an alarm last night? You probably hit snooze. You scrolled your phone before your feet even touched the floor. Then you rushed. Coffee, commute, meetings, deadlines, notifications, lunch eaten at your desk, more notifications, home, dinner, screen, sleep, repeat. You call this life. But here's the question no one is asking. What did humans actually do all day before any of this existed? Not just a few centuries ago. Not medieval peasants. Go back further, much further. 100,000 years? 200,000. Back when your body was exactly the same as it is now. The same brain, the same muscles, the same nervous system. But none of the structure you take for granted had been invented yet. No schedules, no jobs, no obligations set by someone else. Just you, your group, and the land around you. The answer, when researchers actually dug into it, was not what anyone expected. And it changes how you see almost every hour of your modern day. The first clue came from anthropologist Marshall Sahlins. In 1966, he presented a paper that would become one of the most debated ideas in the history of anthropology. He called our ancestors the original affluent society. His argument was simple and deeply uncomfortable. Hunter-gatherers, the humans who lived for the vast majority of our species' existence, did not work very hard. Not by modern standards, not even close. Sahlins pulled data from fieldwork on the Kungsan people of the Kalahari and the Arnhem Land Aboriginal communities of Australia. Both groups, living in conditions that closely mirrored those of ancient humans, spent roughly 3 to 5 hours per day on what we would call work. Hunting, gathering, preparing food. That was it. The rest of the day was theirs, 3 to 5 hours. Think about that against your own week. But what did they do with the rest of it? This is where it gets stranger and more revealing than most people expect. They rested. Deliberately and deeply, they talked. Not scrolling, not networking, not catching up on a backlog of messages. They sat together and they talked, sometimes for hours, about nothing particularly important. Stories, gossip, small observations about the world around them. Anthropologist Polly Weissner spent decades studying the Bwa Kung San and found that around 70% of their evening campfire conversation was devoted to storytelling. Not planning, not problem solving, pure narrative. Your brain, the exact same organ sitting in your skull right now, was shaped in that firelight. It was calibrated for that rhythm. Story, rest, movement, story again. The movement itself is worth examining closely. When your ancient ancestors did move, they did not move like modern humans exercise. There were no sessions. There was no interval training. Evolutionary biologist Daniel Lieberman at Harvard has spent years studying this, and his conclusions are striking. Ancient humans moved constantly but gently. They walked. They walked enormous distances, between 10 and 15 kilometers per day on average, but slowly with no particular urgency. Interspersed with that walking was brief, explosive effort. Chasing something, climbing something, sprinting away from something, then rest again. This is the movement pattern your cardiovascular system was literally built for. Not the 45-minute treadmill session you feel guilty about skipping. Slow and steady, punctuated by sudden intensity, followed by genuine stillness. And then there were the children. Raising them looked nothing like it does today. There was no primary caregiver. There was no single mother or father shouldering the load in an isolated house while the world moved around them. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer Hrdy, whose work on the evolution of human cooperation is foundational in the field, introduced the concept of alloparenting. Ancient human children were raised by the group. Aunts, uncles, older siblings, grandmothers, unrelated adults who simply lived nearby. An infant was held by multiple people throughout the day. A toddler wandered between bodies, between laps, between watchful pairs of eyes. Your attachment system, the deep neurological wiring that makes you crave closeness and panic at isolation, was forged in that kind of density. Not nuclear family density, village density. You were never meant to feel alone in raising anything. Now, consider sleep, because this might be the most disorienting finding of all. Jerome Siegel, a sleep researcher at UCLA embedded with traditional communities in Tanzania, Namibia, and Bolivia, who had no access to electric light. He measured their sleep patterns continuously for months. The results overturned almost everything modern medicine had assumed. These communities did not sleep 8 hours a night. They slept between 6 and 7.5 hours, but they also rested in ways that fell outside the definition of sleep. They lay still. They dozed. They sat quietly in a state that was neither fully awake nor fully asleep. Siegel's team concluded that this transitional state, this deliberate, unstructured rest, was not laziness. It was biology. Your brain processes, consolidates, and repairs itself in that in-between zone, not only in deep sleep. And here you are, feeling guilty about the afternoon fog that settles over you around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. That fog is not a flaw. It is your ancestral rest window, showing up on schedule whether your calendar agrees or not. Food is the next pillar, and it dismantles something else entirely. Your ancient ancestors did not eat 3 meals a day. That structure was invented by industrialized society and reinforced by the rhythms of factory shifts. Before that, before agriculture, before stored grain and scheduled cooking, humans ate when there was something to eat. Some days that meant a large kill shared across the whole group. Other days it meant a handful of tubers and some fruit. The feast and the fast were not emergencies. They were the pattern. Anthropological evidence from bone chemistry and dental records, studied extensively by researchers like Amanda Henry at the Max Planck Institute, shows that ancient diets were far more varied than previously assumed. Seeds, roots, insects, fruit, meat, fish, bark, fungi, whatever the landscape offered. The idea of a staple food, one thing you eat most of the time, is a product of farming. Your digestion is older and stranger and more adaptable than that. Here's the piece that tends to land hardest. The thing your ancient ancestors did more than anything else, more than hunting, more than gathering, more than sleeping, was be together, in close proximity, touching, talking, present. Evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar at Oxford University proposed what is now called Dunbar's number. The idea that the human brain can comfortably maintain stable social relationships with roughly 150 people. That is the size of the social group your neocortex evolved to navigate. Not a city of millions, not an online network of thousands, 150 faces you actually knew. People who knew your name, your history, your mood, your smell, every anxiety you feel in a crowd of strangers, every longing for a closer group of friends, every exhaustion after too much shallow socializing. These are signals from a brain that was tuned to a very specific frequency. 150 people who actually knew you. You probably have not experienced that in years, maybe ever. There is one more thing, something quieter and harder to quantify. Your ancestors had no concept of wasted time. There was no productivity. There was no output. There was no metric by which a day could be declared successful or failed. A day was a day. You woke with the light. You moved. You ate when there was food. You rested when your body asked. You sat with your people after the sun went down. And you told stories until your eyes closed. Then you did it again. Philosopher and historian Yuval Noah Harari has written that the agricultural revolution, which began roughly 12,000 years ago, may have been the worst mistake in human history for the average individual. Not because farming was wrong, but because it bound human beings to land, to crops, to seasons, to debts, to hierarchies, and to a new kind of grinding, repetitive labor that the body had never been designed to perform. The skulls of early farmers compared to those of the hunter-gatherers who preceded them show smaller brains, more disease, shorter stature, worse teeth, more signs of stress on the bones. Agriculture fed more people. It did not make individuals healthier or happier. Not at first, not for a very long time. You are the inheritor of that trade. Every system around you, the alarm, the schedule, the performance review, The commute, the deadline, the 40-hour week is a very recent invention layered over a very ancient body. That body did not consent to the arrangement. It simply adapted, incompletely, the way all bodies adapt, by carrying forward what it was built for into a world that no longer matches. So tonight, if you find yourself sitting still for a moment, doing nothing obvious, not producing, not optimizing, not completing anything, and you feel that familiar edge of guilt, that restless sense that you should be doing something more, know what that feeling is. It is the newest part of you, the part shaped by capitalism and calendars and clocks, fighting with the oldest part of you, the part that sat in firelight, told a story to 100 familiar faces and called that enough, because for almost all of human history, it was.